A lot of the most intense and passionate fandoms in media tend to surround the most difficult pieces of media to get into, and for good reason. When you put all that effort into getting into something, when you climb that hill, when you fucking peel away all the layers to get to the rich, creamy center of a piece of media, and you really appreciate it on a deep level because you had to put so much effort into it, there's a good chance that you're going to feel more passionately about it than you would about something that you could enjoy just by passively consuming it. Something that just flitters by and you like it and it's pretty. You know, when you look at stuff like, for instance, the Dark Souls franchise, where it's a game series known for its difficulty, and the people who are into it are so into it, and they just go on about it all day, forever, because of the fact that, you know, they had to put in that effort to get into something that not everybody could necessarily appreciate, and that is more satisfying because it took that effort. Because once you do figure out why it's good, and you do have that moment of having conquered it, then it feels that much more special. Like you did something, as opposed to just consuming something. You know, you feel like a part of it. And I've noticed this with lots of the biggest fandoms online. In fact, most things that are extremely, like, fanatical, like have fanatical fan bases are like this. If you look at Toho, famously an extremely difficult series of games, and not just difficult to play. Like, if you aren't even into the games, if you're just into the general Toho fandom, like learning about the characters and stuff, that's still hard to get into because there's no real piece of media to just consume and understand it. You have to go do research, you have to go fucking dive wikis and forums and learn all this shit in order to understand what the hell's going on in this fan base. You know, you can't just passively watch one show and know everything the way that other people will do with whatever the flavor of the month anime is. So I think that, you know, this is kind of consistently the case, and difficulty can mean a lot of different things. It can mean, again, like literally physically difficult, like playing Dark Souls. You have to actually learn the mechanics and learn how to execute on those mechanics in order to beat the game. Toho, you have to do research. Then there's stuff that's just kind of impenetrable, like if you read James Joyce or Infinite Jest or something, like the people, James Joyce is a bad example because nobody knows what the fuck he's talking about, but like some books like Infinite Jest that have these diehard cult followings, it's because the book's hard to read. It's because you have to really like dig into it and try to understand it. Or even stuff like, if you ever notice that like people who are passionate about something like history or something collegiate, you know, something academic, those people tend to be really passionate about the things that they're into because of the fact that they had to study it. They had to go to school and pass all these difficult fucking exams and, like, you know, really learn this thing. Sometimes the content is just simply harsh or seen as, like, weird and off-putting, like you would be weird for being into it. You know, something like Death Grips, which is a very passionate fandom, it's because the music is, like, literally deafening. Like, it hurts your ears to listen to it. It's stuff that's off-putting and so, you know, off from like what most people would listen to, but once you get past that and you understand it and you get to the core, suddenly it's the best thing in the universe. Or even stuff that like society frowns on you for liking. I think the reason that bronies were so passionate about My Little Pony has a lot to do with the fact that they thought they weren't allowed to watch it. It's a show for little girls. It's not actually hard to, like, watch and appreciate My Little Pony, but the fact that, you know, you have to work through the fact that you're watching a kids show for little girls and that no one who you know is going to approve of you doing this was the difficulty that these people were overcoming. And, like, I think, yeah, again, most of the popular cult fan bases are kind of like this. But then, while on the one hand that's kind of beautiful because it means that people feel like they're a part of something and it really gives them this extra level of appreciation for it, and it's what inspires people to be creative in response. You know, you often see, like, I think these are the kinds of works that inspire the most, like, fan work, because you almost have to approach it creatively to even get into it. Like, again, it feels like you've done something. Whereas, like, watching a show doesn't feel like an accomplishment. But beating Dark Souls feels like you did something and now you can do another thing. And it kind of gives you that sensation of completion, which I think completing things is a skill in itself. And, like, just, like, having done something is a good way to make it so you will do more things. And so getting that feeling from a piece of media is part of what inspires these people to get so creative and get so passionate about the stuff that they like. On the other hand, though, these people in these kinds of fandoms tend to be the most insufferable fucking people on planet Earth because they've gotten so deeply invested in this thing that it matters to them. It matters to them deeply. And when anybody else approaches their thing and doesn't seem to appreciate it in the same way they do, they can't handle that shit. When people criticize Dark Souls for being too hard, Dark Souls fans are going to rain fucking fire on them, even though it is a perfectly valid opinion to think that Dark Souls is too hard. If you don't enjoy it because it's too hard, then, you know, fuck off, who cares? Like, you don't have to like the game. You can have the opinion that you don't like it. And a lot of people will say, oh, that opinion's not helpful. It is helpful to other people who won't like the game. It's helpful to anybody else who won't get into it, who is going to feel the same way when they play the game. A review, an analysis, an opinion piece on something is not for the people who are already fans of it. That's kind of pointless. You know, usually it's to represent a personal perspective, and whoever shares that perspective can, connect with it, or anybody who doesn't feel that perspective can understand why someone else feels that way. But again, with the fans of these things, they tend to, act like, oh, you didn't earn the right to talk about this thing. I had to work to be able to talk about this thing because I came into the Dark Souls forums and I didn't know what the Moonlight Greatsword is and everyone fucking jumped on me and now I had to go learn that shit. I had to go play the games and figure it out and come back and be a part of the community, and now you're gonna come in here not knowing what a Moonlight Greatsword is and try to review Dark Souls? Fuck you, But again, it's a perfectly valid opinion to not want to go through all that. And this brings me to the current insufferable fandom that I've just had to deal with, which is the Fate fandom. People who love Fate, the franchise. Because Fate is one of these simply because it's a visual novel. And visual novels inherently are difficult because they're fucking long and boring and shitty. Like, the Fate novels have an impenetrable writing style. Consider what a visual novel is. You are not just reading something. You are clicking through text. You have to pace it yourself, listen to its shitty music because, otherwise you're not getting the full atmosphere. I gotta hear all the sound effects, which means I can't put on my music or listen to something else in the background. I gotta fucking listen to this shitty MIDI fucking shit coming out of this video game with, mediocre artwork drawn by fucking amateurs in 15 years ago, and fucking read this bullshit story that's full of garbage because the author was fucking 20 and it's like his second work or whatever. Point being, Fate sucks. And so if you like Fate, you had to overcome the incredible shittiness of Fate in order to get into it and in order to appreciate it. So, like, once you reach that point, then it's just like, you can't listen to anyone talk about Fate unless they know everything about it, because you got into it, and once you get into something, the fucking floodgates are open. Once you are into Dark Souls, once you've bought into that, you're gonna play all the Souls games, you're gonna play fucking challenge runs, you're gonna learn where every item is, you're gonna watch all the fucking lore, you're gonna know everything about it, because you're into it. Why wouldn't you? All of that is just feeding the beast that you've created inside yourself. So once you get into Fate, and you really care about it, you're gonna watch all the extra bullshit, and you're gonna know everything, and somehow you're gonna be able to comprehend what's happening in Fate Apocrypha, even though you hate it, but you still comprehend it. So when someone comes along criticizing it who doesn't comprehend it, you still have to take a step back and be like, even though I agree that this show is shitty, I don't like hearing somebody who doesn't know everything about Fate talking about it, even though that is by far the most common perspective on Fate, is going to be people who don't know anything about it, who are talking to other people who don't know anything about it, and telling them, hey, this is shitty and stupid, so don't watch it. And they go, cool, I am on your side. I also tried to watch Fate and hated it, so, we're a team here. This is just an excuse for me to shit on Fate. This is an excuse for me to, make an interesting point and then shit on Fate in the same video. That's all I'm doing. I'm just being a dick. I'm just being a troll. That's who I am. I'm a troll guy. That's the joke. That's the meta of the thing. It's this is the After Dark channel. The idea of the After Dark channel is that it's just whatever I want it to be, and it's kind of comedy and tongue-in-cheek. I wear sunglasses indoors. The point is that I'm like a weird dork, and the people who watch the channel are into that. They get it. But then like sometimes people come in and they're like, I don't, what's happening here? He seems like an egotistical, arrogant asshole, and it's like, yeah, that's the joke. You know, he's obviously he doesn't think Fate fans are retards, because that's like an insane opinion to have that no one would have. But like he says it because it's funny, and like that's the joke, and hopefully everyone's in on the joke.